Hi, welcome to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and this is a service of diabloinkgamers.com. I am the host, Flux, and we are joined by Neinball.
Hello, everybody.
And Exile makes his triumphant return.
Hey, hey.
Been a couple of months since you've been on the podcast, Exile, and mainly because you're traveling and you're in Lesser Mongolia without cell phone service.
Pretty much, yeah. Luckily, I somehow have internet connection to play the Diablo 3 beta in the Congo.
Well, that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
This podcast is going to cover all of the individual classes. Last week we kind of talked about the basic skill system changes, and we're going to get more specifics. And Neinball and Exile have played a fair amount of Barbarian and especially Wizard. We've all played way too much Wizard, I think.
Yeah.
Next to the Monk, it is my second most played in the beta right now.
Okay, the Monk's the least fun class. We can talk about that later. But anyway, I'm sure we could do an hour on the Wizard, but we're going to try to keep these to like 15 minutes per character so we can get all 5 into one show that won't be 7 hours long.
Okay.
Famous last words. So, what do you guys think of the general skill system and rune system changes? Obviously, it's not item based anymore. You get them, you get skills 1 through 30. You get a new rune effect like every 6 or 8 levels on each skill. You first, Exile, since it's been a while. How do you think that compares to the old item based system?
Yeah. So I like it in the sense that, and listening to the last podcast, Azur's idea, which I don't know, is he still gloating about how he was right?
Of course.
I have the T-shirt that says Azur was right.
Everyone has that T-shirt, or
Oh,
they
yeah.
soon will. I think it comes in the Diablo III Collector's Edition now.
Yeah. I mean, in the sense of, every level or two, I get a skill, or at least I get a variation of a skill. I like that. I like it in the sense that, yes, it makes sense as I level up, so there's really no dead zone. I don't like how I feel like it kind of robs me of early experimentation, to be perfectly honest. So, I mean, on one end, it's something to look forward to. On the other end, I can't, try it out right now. And then, then the items. Honestly, I really like the runes. I like the colors of them, and I'm kind of disappointed to see that they pulled all that out for just like rock on rock textures.
What do you think about the basic system now, Nineball?
Part of me is sad to see the item side of it go, because I guess there was a little bit more prestige with that, being able to say, well, I've got 2 level 7 runes, that I'm using in my skills and such, but the idea that they came up with as far as the, getting rid of all the item troubles that it would create and the storage troubles that it would create is, most likely, a decent switch off from, having that like level of prestige of being able to say that you have, spent all the time to build up to have like the best that there is. And there's no saying that they can't add that back on as just item modifiers.
One thing I was noticing today, thinking about the theory, is that I had initially planned for once Diablo 3 is released, I was going to play all 5 characters in sequence up to like level 30, and then experiment with all the rune stones. Just kind of go through all the content, see all the skills and all the rune stones, and I could have done that by level like 30 or 31. That's no longer possible. Now you got to get every character to like 55 to try all the rune stones out.
Yeah.
So I have to obviously prioritize a little, or else play 18 hours a day. One of the two, or possibly both. Do you guys think this is going to affect how you're going to play it long term? I mean, I really wanted to keep leveling up some of the characters in the beta now. I mean, I really got few of them above like 11 before, because it got boring and grindy and nothing really changed. But I wanted to get them to like 15 and 16 and 20 and 30 now. It's like, oh, look at this new just cool effect at 14. If only I could get to it. So I think it'll pull players more eagerly into higher levels now, because they have to keep leveling up to keep getting new shiny as they proceed.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree to that. I mean, right now it really feels like a tease, because it's like you're capped out at 13, and there's level 15 I'm looking at like Shock Pulse, and it has Fire Bolts at 17. I'm like, I really want to try that. I want to set enemies on fire. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely is a good system built for, I guess, the long haul, which I guess for us and everyone else listening, we plan on playing this until our fingers and eyes bleed.
Yeah, that's also one of those things that, another one of Azur's points was it fills in that dead zone that was, going from 30 to 60 to where now you're always getting something whenever you level up almost.
So one other thing that I noticed with the now that we have these runestones at such an early level, I mean, the whole point of runestones is that they make skills better. Basically every skill is improved by every runestone. Did you get any sense of the game difficulty being imbalanced or changed? I mean, obviously we hadn't really been full of complaints about the beta being too hard previously, but it seems like they're making it even easier now in terms of you've got these skills that are all improved, and yet the monsters are kind of the same as they were. Do we think that's a problem, or it's just early game and nobody cares?
The one thing that I noticed when I jumped on my wizard, having started like the fifth one from all the wipes, is I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of taking damage. And then they've added a lot more monsters, and so I started getting overwhelmed, and I actually had to like step back, and I couldn't be, a tank essentially. Um, I feel like it started to click. It's almost like they dumbed down the skill, and then like especially for magic missile, and when I got my first rune, the first rune like brought the skill back up to what it used to be.
Any other general comments, or should we just jump right into the wizard?
I really hope that this skill template that they have right now, I hope they plan on spicing it up a little bit. It's very boring and kind of
You mean
confusing.
the interface, the UI,
Yeah,
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 which everyone hates?
yeah, the UI
yeah.
definitely still needs a lot of work, and especially just the ability to, if I choose elect mode, I want the ability to just move a skill on my skill bar, without having to go and select another one and then switch it over and having to deal with a 15-second cooldown on two abilities and go through like four different menus just to move arcane orb from the right click to the one key and things like that. That's just very annoying. Blizzard, if you're listening to this, please do something about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
right.
skill shuffling is really annoying.
Yes.
I know. Why can't they put a little check mark for elect mode on the skill panel? That's what is driving me crazy. I had heard that there was an elect mode, and I'm embarrassed to admit I like barreled through about 10 levels of the wizard before I realized I could even do that. I was like, oh, here it is, all buried all the way back here.
So you were stuck with Frost Nova on your one click for 9 levels.
Yeah, I wanted to click on the icon and drag it to its action bar, and it was really annoying.
Well, Bashiok's mom didn't like the old system, so
No,
they got their high-level expert tester input.
yeah,
Speaking of Exile, you mentioned that you made your girlfriend play some D3, and she's not a gamer, right?
yeah. So
And what
Bashiok
was
is
what was her reaction?
well. I figured I needed to go if this game was for Bashiok kept saying his grandma could play it. Like, well, I need to go to the source and go to someone who knows absolutely nothing about video games, and that would be my girlfriend, who really she just knows that I like games and it makes me happy, so that makes her happy. And so I was like, all right, can you just do this favor for me? And so I put her in front of the game, and she picked the female monk, because she was the prettiest looking. And when she encountered Leah, her reaction was, "Oh, she's got a boner hair. How can I be her?" And she's a little disappointed that she couldn't be her. Uh, and then as far as the skill system, she was just like, "Okay, so what do I do?" And I had to explain it to her a couple times when she got her first skill. And I think she loses interest in games particularly quick whenever I try and make her play them. But she was just kind of like, "Okay, well okay, I'm done." She's sort of like, "This isn't really fun for me." So.
It's funny that we should we need to make sure that Blizzard doesn't hear this because they'll make the skill system even more simplified.
Yeah, and
Oh, somebody's girlfriend didn't like it for half an hour.
they'll say, "Oh, we need to start making headpieces that have bows on them. We need to cover all demographics."
Did you give her any explanation at the start? You said you kind of explained the skill system, but I mean,
She, being someone who's never really seen any of these systems, I had to explain it. So everything was pretty foreign from the beginning for her. I mean, she understood like, okay, well, this one goes to my mouse, and then this one goes to my, my right click, and then this is my one button. So she picked that up pretty quickly. She didn't. I mean, since she had nothing else to compare to, she didn't particularly mind. I mean, given that all of us are pretty experienced gamers, the moment we had to be told where our buttons were going to go, I think that really upsets a lot of us versus someone who's basically never played any sort of real action-based RPG.
of course, your girlfriend's never gonna buy, never would never buy Diablo 3 and would never have played it if you hadn't made her do it. So
Right. I tried. She's like, yeah, no.
And yet she's their target audience.
Pretty
Okay.
pretty much. If they could play an episode of Gossip Girl in the map. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop giving these ideas because you never know.
Yep.
I'm guessing your girlfriend's out of earshot at the moment, also.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's good. Well, when you untie her and let her out of the closet later, you can tell her you talked about something else.
Oh, I know, right?
Okay, so moving on to the wizard. All three of us, it's amongst our favorite characters, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely shaping up to be the second character that I play through the game with.
And there's just so many skills that are fun to use early on. I mean, you can.
Right,
Oh yeah,
right. I named mine Kaboom because Arcane Orb just destroys everything on the screen.
Yeah, Arcane Nova is ridiculous.
yeah,
It's
that is impressive, and that's like one of those things. They definitely have to be, like watching the player data or something like that, because when they made the change of Arcane Orb being the first skill that you get, that was probably one of the greatest changes that they've made in the beta so far.
Yeah, so the wizard starts off at level 1 with magic missile, and that's just a single target, etc. And then level 2, you get arcane orb, which is like this nuclear explosion, 10-yard radius, much higher damage, and just that would be a good skill at 13. I mean, it was a good skill at 13 before this patch. And then at level 8 you get arcane, or at 7 you get arcane nova, which increases the radius from 10 to 20 yards, which is not double. It's what? I'm not good with the math here off the top of my head, but that's like 4 times the radius, right? I mean, it's like 4 times the area of effect
Yeah.
since it's
It
double in every direction. So
Hmm.
so it's a lot bigger. It's like shooting a projectile that creates a wave of force, basically.
yeah.
Yeah, there was one time I was going through and playing with a friend, and we had like one of those instances where the skeletal banners had spawned along with the summoners. So I just
That's
shot
so
out.
fun.
I
It's like
shot
more,
out.
more,
Yeah,
more.
it just shot out like three arcane orbs, and the next thing I know, my screen is just covered with it's like you killed 7, you killed 12, you killed 15 with one hit. It's just like that is amazing.
Do we think it's overpowered, or it's fun and we don't care?
I mean, at level 13, I think it's fun and I don't care. You can't really make a decision of whether it's overpowered or not, based on this low level, really.
Yeah, it's definitely not a move that I felt was effective using on Leoric. It's not really a boss ending move. It's definitely like a trash mob. It just cleans up, basically.
Digress briefly, which I said we shouldn't do, but here I go. I was playing a witch doctor last night, and it was really annoying me that I had to have one of my ranged spells on the left click at all times. I generally use the keyboard options and the right click for my ranged attacks, for spells, for AOE attacks and stuff. And it's difficult to left click at targets at a distance, because if you misclick by half an inch, then you start running towards them all of a sudden. And it's like, no, 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 don't want to run towards, want to stay here and shoot arrows or whatever. And I really think it would be nice if they included 7 hotkeys. I'm fine with there only being 6 skills, whatever. But 1 through 5 or whatever, plus right click and left click. That way I can just leave left click on basic attack and put all my ranged attacks and everything else on right click in the numbers. Like, I don't mind left click attacks if it's like bash or cleave or something, but I'm not fond of range stuff, magic missile type things.
Even while playing a melee character, I'm almost always holding down shift just for that, so I can control exactly where it is that I'm standing. It's my most used key in the beta so far.
Have you remapped the 1, 2, 3, 4 to something more, or do you have a very large hand? I mean,
No, it's
it's hard to have your hand on the keyboard where you can hit shift and 1 through 4 without moving around.
no. I mean, it feels fine for myself.
Oh no. I haven't been remapping the keys because the stupid thing forgets all your key remapping every game, so it's not worth the trouble. But
Yeah, that's definitely
Mm.
one issue at least that they brought back. It's like they had it fixed for one patch and then it's broken again.
every new game you got to turn elective mode back on and monster hitboxes and all that other stuff, and it's just like I just don't care. Just tolerate it.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think of the magic missile triple shot? Did you find it delicious?
Oh,
It was nice. It reminds me a lot of it. It just kind of has the properties of a shotgun blast. If you can get up nice and close, you can really do some damage with it. So that's why I was kind of a fan of that. And, when it spreads out like that, it sort of loses its potency.
But they're pretty close together, so you can pretty much always hit at least 2 of them into one target.
Yeah, that's true.
and every one of them gets a chance at critical strike. So it seems like it's a much better than the single shot, even though the damage is roughly equivalent.
Even after unlocking that, I still continue to use the charge blast rune as opposed to the triple shot, because it's like for anything when there was more than a single mob, I was using arcane orb, and for just the single target things from halfway across the screen or whatever, I'd use either that or electrocute.
One thing that's weird, the magic missile multi-shot is now called split. It was previously called fork. So did they change that when they changed it to the new system, or did they just decide they liked the word better? Because previously you got one more missile with every rune level, and you could get up to 8 of them eventually, which would have been a real shotgun effect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is that more appropriately called fork or split? Or does this make no difference at all to anybody but me?
Hadn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah, I just noticed when I was updating the wiki, I'm like, the name changed. It's just weird.
Yeah, but the one thing that I'm kind of interested in is if that will increase as you level up. It's like once we hit level 60, will it fire more than the 3 missiles, or will it just be that 3 the entire time?
Yeah, they said they said when they changed from the runestones from levels 1 through 7 just to the base, they said they made them all like level 4 or 5. Except obviously that's not the case with fork or split, depending on what you want to call it. Because this used to be level 2, where you get 3 shots.
Yeah.
So
And
it would be nice if it increased in every 15 character levels or something. Because I can't see this really being viable at it's 60. Where if you could have shot 8 of them out, that might have been viable in game.
yeah,
With just 3, it's like eh.
they should have at least made it 5 as like a homage to D&D where it came from.
Big change to Frost Nova. It's only a debuff now, no more damage. You guys, how do you think that works out?
I don't really like it. I mean, I guess I could just start by saying that.
On my first playthrough of the wizard, it was kind of useful for Leoric, because I hadn't really leveled up the blacksmith and had very little gear, so I wasn't able to craft that much. So it was nice using it against him to keep him in place for a few seconds as I ran away. Other than that, I haven't found a use for it since then, and I even tried messing around with the shatter rune, and that doesn't seem to be working very well, because I've gone through froze people, hit them with an arcane orb, and then things around them never got frozen, even the stuff that would like survive the shot. And then I started playing around with just magic missile and single targeting one of them down, and it never really seemed to do any type of chain.
I never saw the graphic. If you watched the video Ellie put up, you did see a few times she was using electrocute with it, and a few times there would be additional monsters would suddenly be frozen. But I never saw the actual Nova go out during my play or during her video. So maybe that's a bug in the beta right now.
Yeah, it could be.
The way the skill works, we should at least mention this for listeners, is that it freezes monsters for 3 seconds, and anything that dies during that 3 seconds is supposed to have a 50% chance of sending out an additional Frost Nova. So in theory, like you were saying, you could just sort of domino effect this, and you do it once, and you kill 2 of those monsters, and one of them would send out another one, and you could just sort of spread across the screen. The problem in the beta is everything's dead in 2 seconds anyway, so it's kind of hard to tell, but and also apparently it's not working right. Speaking of underwhelming freezing skills, how'd you guys feel about Ray of Frost?
Yeah. You know what? I was expecting something, what was the other Ray one? I keep forgetting the name of it.
Disintegrate.
Yeah, I was expecting something that did a little bit more damage, like Disintegrate, but this one just sort of hurts them and slows them a little bit. I feel like it sacrifices that damage for the slow, which I guess would be good for PvP, but it's really annoying when you're, trying to kill a zombie and he's slowly getting closer to you, and why is he not dead yet?
Yeah, there's no piercing at all with it. That's the real drawback versus, every other wizard skill. There's so many AoEs, it's hard to do with something that just has one target.
Yeah, that one was useful for like a single target spell until I got Arcane Torrent against things like Leoric and the Chancellor's Ghost and stuff like that, because it was a lot better damage for a single person than Arcane Orb was. So I used that one until I ended up getting Arcane Torrent, which for me just feels better.
Arcane Torrent's our other new skill, and you just mentioned that Neinball. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a it's death from above, but to a fairly limited area, so you can and you target the ground, so you kind of sweep it around.
Yeah.
It's an interesting mechanic, I thought.
Yeah, and the other nice thing about it is it will actually track wherever your mouse is. So if you hold it down or targeting one area, and those first as the missiles are in the air, and you quickly like sweep across to another point that will follow back through. So if the first two missiles like kill a skeleton on one side of the screen, and you quickly switch over to the other one, the missiles will then track back over there to where you're not wasting any of the attacks or any of your arcane power. And that one we also saw in the BlizzCon PvP demo, and the debuff that increased the arcane damage was just insane. Of being able to go through and hit somebody with that, get the arcane debuff on them, and then like switch over into the Archon form and hit them with the arcane disintegrate, and they would just die in half a second.
Really fun to use, and it's one of those like when I got it at 12, I was like, all right, well, there will clearly not be a rune for this that I can try, so I'm really excited to give that a shot when the official game comes out.
Any other wizard comments before we move on?
This one is just kind of a general wizard, as well as a few of the other classes, such as the Demon Hunter. In this patch, they got rid of the passive skill that made it, Virtuoso, that your basic attack would generate arcane power, as well as, increased it to 200% damage. So they now have removed all of the passive skills that actually gave any benefit to using your basic attacks. So it does.
There is no basic attack.
Yeah. So that they definitely have gotten rid of any reason to ever want to use the basic attack on anything.
And one last thing on the wizard, Energy Twister is now 15, and I was glad because I meant I didn't have to use it. So
yeah,
I am kind of curious to see if that one ever actually becomes useful with the rune effects, because I thought it was easily the least effective wizard skill in every version of the game thus far.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of terrible, how about the Barbarian? Now, I powered a Barb through to 13 because I was actually required to do this. Ellie's like, I want to shoot a video of the Barbarian's rune effects tomorrow. Can you play him up to 13? I'm like, oh, God. So I did. And I found him boring and grindy until 8 when you start getting some cool rune effects. Cleave comes in, you can get multiple hits and explode and stuff, because there weren't really enough exploding corpses with the Barbarian previously. And then at higher levels, you get Leap Attack at 9, which is a godsend, and then Frenzy at 11. So you guys have played the Barbarian to a little bit. What did you think? I mean, obviously you can't compare it to a real class like the Wizard, but for simple people who like monster trucks and firecrackers and stuff, it's kind of fun, right?
Yeah, actually, I mean, the thing that always has kind of cracked me up about the Barbarian is the moon physics. It kind of makes sense if an arcane like Nova like blows up everything apart and it's all drifting away from the impact. But yeah, I would do a cleave or a bash, and then things just go flying. And especially now that I've been putting, we have some runes to try out with them. I'm just like, oh my god, things are kind of like I'm walking away from the battle and things are still kind of falling back to earth.
Well, that's all he had going for him, in my opinion. So they had to make him. He had very simple melee hits for the most part, so you have to make things fly and explode and skeletons fall out of bodies and stuff.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time just kind of. I just feel like I walk in there with my mouse held down, waiting to drop the Hammer of the Ancients to send everything going in the opposite direction. So it's.
Do you have a counterpoint here, Neinball, to our horrible, insulting commentary?
Not really, because as far as like playing a melee class, I enjoy the monk considerably better. And the most fun that I had with the barbarian, I think the most fun experience that I had with my barbarian was I had just started a fresh game on a level 1. I was going over to Old Tristram, and I was killing enemies in one of the pumpkin patches with a flaming axe or something like that. And I did a bash, killed something, then I was going through and like running half the screen over, and then one of the flaming bits of pumpkin finally like landed like 2 feet away from me. And
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like that's the most fun that I had with the barbarian, is just seeing things fly like 3 screens and reach low orbit. Other than that, it just, I don't know, just go up and whack things, and didn't really feel all that engaging.
Yeah, I felt like once I got Rupture. Yeah, I'm looking at Rupture on Cleave. I mean, that it kind of helped the multiple enemy situation, because one dies and then it sort of explodes into a bloody mess. And if everyone's pretty low on life, then at least I can feel like I'm cleaning up a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that one I can't really make too much of a judgment on that one yet, because everything dies in a single hit, so the actual explosions themselves don't really kill all that much more because the initial damage from the cleave is what kills most of the enemies. That one though might get a lot more powerful once the enemies themselves become more powerful.
Right.
You get one other change barbarian. Ground Stomp is now at 8, and basically it's Frost Nova for the barbarian. It's only a debuff, no more damage.
Right.
Yeah,
But of course, you have no reason ever to stun anything in the beta with a barbarian, so it's like, okay, why bother?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
that if you stun them, that means they're not running towards you, which means it takes longer to kill them.
Yeah. And Rend is this cool AoE effect now. It's you spin around, hit everything like a 360 degrees around you, and it gives them an AoE damage DOT damage for a few seconds of bleeding. But of course, you could just do 2 cleaves and they're all dead anyway. So it's like cool skill design. Maybe at level 13 in the actual game it'll be important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one I still used against Leoric, just making sure that I try and kept the dot up on him as much as I could possibly could, because just for the fury cost, it was some pretty good damage.
And you're using your valuable skills are bash and cleave, and those are gaining you fury constantly. So it's not like you're short on fury.
Oh, especially with the bash rune, making it to where you generate, what was it? It was like 12 fury per attack.
Leap attack obviously is you finally get that at 9 now. You have to kind of wait, but once you get that, you can finally move quickly and leap over railings and up and down levels, and that's just it's just so convenient. Can you not use leap attack, or is it just like faster kill?
It's more efficient.
It's fun.
You guys play with Frenzy yet, or you're not high enough level with your little tiny weak barbarians?
Yeah, I've not gotten frenzy yet because I only got mine up to 10. Um, but
Mine goes to 11.
oh
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it in D2, and it gives you this fast hit, but like we're saying with a lot of other stuff, it gives you 15% increased attack speed and stacks up to 5. But as people can probably guess, by the time you get to 5, everything is dead. So
mm,
this is another skill that we're thinking it'll be fun later on in the game. But in the beta, it's just like it looks cool, but then there's nothing left to hit. I'm obviously Skeleton King, but that's kind of it.
yeah, I remember seeing a video in one of the early beta patches of someone going through and using frenzy with a well-geared barbarian in order to go and kill the Skeleton King in like 3 seconds, and said, this would have been faster if I could have gotten the stacks up before actually fighting him. So
Yeah.
I've seen that as far as it being powerful, but I've never put enough time in barbarian in the beta in which to actually get his gear to that point.
The counter's really quick. It's like 3 seconds before it runs out entirely. But if you kind of space stuff out, like I was using that in the Weeping Hollow, in a replay, obviously, and you basically kill everything with one hit. But you can get to another monster within 3 seconds, pretty much always. There's always weeping, puking zombies or something scattered around there. So if you kind of play it right, you can just sort of run tap, run tap, run tap, run tap, run tap, which is really no different than just using bash or something. But it's kind of something to do.
Yeah.
Though the
Yeah.
one thing that I will mention, from my experience playing it in the previous patches, that I like as opposed to how it worked in Diablo 2 is you actually get to see the timer, on your buff, so you know when you need to hit, another mob. It's not just some ability that have to constantly keep like a mental check of when frenzy is going to run off, like it was in Diablo 2. And actually being able to see the buffs and how much time you have left on it is immensely helpful.
The one other odd skill that I was trying to figure out is his threatening shout. Now is his debuff lowers damage from enemies, his war cry, which like every other debuff for the barb is kind of irrelevant in the beta. But the rune comes in and it's called Grim Harvest, and scared monsters I'll quote the description here, have a 5% chance to drop additional treasure. I couldn't tell that was doing anything. I tried it a bunch.
Yeah, I
And what do
can
you think it even means? What does additional treasure mean?
If I were
go
to take
for
a
it.
guess, it probably just means you have a 5% chance of when the mob dies, there's a 5% chance that it will drop an additional piece of loot, or it will have an additional,
It's probably just more gold.
I
With a
really I tried it a lot and never could tell a difference. And it only lasts for a few seconds, so it's kind of hard. You can't just hit them all and then kill a whole screen.
yeah, well, and
Yeah.
also just given like the number of mobs that you're killing and how much, just like gold and other items are dropping, are you going to really notice, one additional item out of every 20 that
No, I
drops?
wasn't.
Exactly.
Given how much the rune effects are supposed to be like these big buffs, I'm surprised they went with 5. You think they go with 25 or 50 or something percent? Although I
Yeah.
guess that'd be completely OP late game, whatever. But
Yeah, it'll probably be nice for, a high level, magic find build that, almost every single item that you're dropping is going to be, magical for going through and collecting crafting materials and for a greater chance at getting, rares, uniques, and legendaries.
any other barbarian thoughts, guys?
Definitely would like to see more of this guy. Definite room for improvement. So I guess it's just the beta is just such a small sample, just like all the other classes I feel, and a lot of skills just I don't feel like display what they can do given that everything can be one shot.
My D2 experience was very much that they were boring and grindy until about 35, and they started getting powerful once they got high level skills. And that seems like it's definitely going to repeat itself in D3.
Oh yeah, doing the whirlwind, the bail runs, just constantly just going crazy. Yeah, it definitely it was a grind fest, and I think they're doing everything they can to make this class more entertaining in the meantime. But when everything dies so quickly, there's no chance to really generate frenzy or feel like the tank character.
I didn't enjoy the barbarian too much in Diablo 2. I got a couple high levels with like frenzy and such, but I found it annoying to where you could either go through and have like a frenzy barbarian, which was really good at killing bosses, but ineffective at killing anything else, and you had to just whack stuff and run through in order to try and get to Bale or Mephisto, in which you could actually do anything when there's fewer enemies, or you could go through and do like a whirlwind barbarian where you could kill all the trash up to the boss, but then once you actually got to Mephisto, you're sitting there for half an hour trying to kill him because it was just so ineffective at single target.
Yeah, just spinning around him.
I missed some sort of dual wield attack with the barb in D3, where it would give you multiple hits with a single use of a melee attack. That was really nice to pair with frenzy, obviously, in D2. I mean, I guess you don't need it so much in D3 because you've got cleave and other skills that hit multiple things per swing, but it doesn't seem like there's any real benefit to dual wielding other than damage at this point.
Yeah, it'd
Pretty
be nice to
much.
see.
Oh
And
yeah.
you can't dual wield the giant two-handed swords anymore either, which kind of takes some variety out. But
Yeah, that was one thing I really liked about the barbarian. I mean, right now mine has dual scythes just because that looks pretty cool, and I can afford cosmetics uh, over function, in a beta like this. But yeah, that was one thing that I really liked about the barbarian in the second game was like here's something that normally you could only hold with two hands, but here he is rolling in with these gigantic great swords, one in each hand, just going to town.
okay, any last comments, guys? We're on the barbarian, or before you go, bye bye exile. Before
Um,
exile is
So,
exiled.
before I exile myself, yeah,
oh,
nope.
oh, oh.
Fun class. Let's see what else it can do when the game comes out, if or when that game comes out.
If
Soon, apparently.
Sorry, new
yeah, it should.
discussion.
People who know things have told me that they were really planning on announcing a release date during the last conference call until like a day beforehand, and they decided we can't make it; it's too soon. But it's from what I've been told, they're thinking it's not going to be June 29th or June 37th or whatever, like usual with Blizzard, and that they say like May is a reasonable release date. So they might not actually use every second of quarter two, but of course, knowing Blizzard, when do they not use every second of a release window, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're probably thinking, why not? We just got
Yeah,
all this
and
extra time. Let's push it up to the end.
yeah, that's like one of those other things that it's at least the way that I think is whenever they give a release date, it's always 2 months out. So it's like kind of like wake up in the morning, there's no release date, so it's at least 2 months away. So it's like going through and looking at it. Well, if they announce it tomorrow, it'll be at bare minimum the end of April. It's like I have no hope whatsoever of it being in March and such.
Okay, okay, exactly. You got to run. You say you got to go and tie your
Yes.
girlfriend. So
Yes, yes. Don't tell anybody, all right?
I think you're lucky that she has like no chance whatsoever of actually listening to this because I think you'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't really have
do you
to.
know the difference between girlfriends and dogs?
Uh-oh, I'm gonna stay out of this.
When you let them out of your trunk after an hour, the dog is happy to see you.
Oh, Jesus. On on that note, You all have a great day.
All right. Thanks for your time, Exile. And we'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye bye.
See ya.
Okay, Wolfpaq, can you hear us?
Yeah, yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You sound good.
Awesome.
And as our continuing, we just talked about the monk and the wizard. I mean, the barbarian and the wizard, and you were of course vexed.
No, I'm okay.
We could have talked about the wizard for like 2 hours, so we had to cut that one short anyway.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm going to be missing out on the monk discussion, which is the one that I wanted to do.
Actually, no one else likes the monk, so it might be just me and you for the monk.
Oh,
Actually,
that works for me.
So you played a lot of Demon Hunter, Wolfpaq. We'll give you, just before we get into that, what do you think about the changes to the skill in the runestone? We talked about this earlier with the other guys, but
I'm sort of mixed. I like that it's no longer items because I like that you automatically unlock runes as you go, and it gives you a little bit more of a sense of progression. I'm a little bit concerned about how they're going to replace skill ranks. This new skill calculator just came out like yesterday, I think. And a lot of the skill runes are drastically nerfed from what their rank 7 counterparts would have been. And some of them, I mean, I know you just finished talking about the wizard, but the split magic missile is something I've been looking forward to ever since we saw it at that video at BlizzCon. And we saw like 7 or 8 missiles coming out in one cast, and now it's like hard stuck at 3, and it's never going to be more than 3. And that just is a little disappointing to me. And that's just an example. There's dozens of skills like that where they said we were getting rank 4 or 5, but really we got like rank 1 or rank 2. So yeah, it's sort of mixed because I wasn't looking forward to having to do a item grind to get my skills at the max level, but now that they're at the max level, as soon as you unlock them, the max level is a little disappointing for some of them. So yeah, it's give or take. As far as the interface goes, I really don't like the interface, and I hope they improve it drastically. Even with the elective mode, it's not fun. You can't drag. The hotbar is just a mess, and looking at your skills is not pleasant either. And I really hope they make some adjustments to that before the game goes live.
I will assure the listeners that we did not plan this in advance, and the fact that he made the exact same points we all made 20 minutes ago and we're in 100% agreement about was not pre-planned. So this is pretty clearly everyone feels sort of the same way about those 3 features.
Oh, good. That's actually a relief. I hope they're getting lots of feedback on that from people who actually have beta accounts.
I actually brought up Magic Missile as the problem being with runes no longer going up to 7, and you only get 3 shots, and that's going to suck late game. And obviously we thought alike on that one.
Dude, not only does it suck late game, it's barely useful early game. Like, electrocutes better in every way, as far as I can tell. But anyways,
that's not even with a runestone yet.
Yeah, exactly. No runestone magic missile. I mean electrocute. But anyway, so you wanted me to talk a little bit about Demon Hunter? Is that right?
Yeah, you played a little bit of Demon Hunter, right, Neinball?
Yeah.
And you played the 13 Wolfpaq in the new version.
Yes, it's the Demon Hunter is the character I've been trying to deck out in the past couple of days, and it's been going really well. It's super fun to me.
Yeah, I played one to 13 as well, and there's one new skill, but obviously there's a lot of changes to the runestones as well. And there were a lot of buffs in terms of damage increases to many skills. Did you notice that on the whole? The Demon Hunter just seemed a little more powerful now?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm killing entire groups with my Bola shot, which was not it wasn't even a skill I looked at, in previous versions.
Yeah, that was probably one of my biggest changes when playing through with the Demon Hunter was I actually found a use for Bola Shot, especially once they got the rune effect for it. Before, it was just I tested it out and I was like, okay, never using that again.
Right.
Now I always am using it. Even I'll always fire that first before I even shoot out like Hungering Arrow or anything else. The increased damage as well as the increase of the explosion radius is incredibly useful now.
Yeah, the radius is, to me, what does it. It's crazy. You can hit entire packs now, while as before, they had to be super tight for the explosion to hit more than 1 or 2 guys, even in a group of like 8 or 9. But now it'll hit everyone, and it's great. I really like it.
So the previous version, I think it was a longer timer, right? Wasn't it 3 seconds before explosion, or am I expanding that in my memory?
Not sure.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it definitely felt like it took longer for the explosion to go off.
And so now you shoot it, and this thing wraps around the monster's neck, or wraps around the neck of the chair you might shoot it at in the dungeon, or a barrel, or any damn thing. It's just you shoot things, and it takes a second, and then there's a big explosion, and the target takes 130% damage weapon damage, and the explosion is 110% AoE damage to everything within 7 yards. And then at level 8, you get the first runestone is volatile explosions, and that increases your range to 14 yards, which I concur with what Wolfpaq just said. That makes a vast difference.
Yeah.
Just everything gets hit by it now. And previously it was, you had to stack like 4 of them on one monster and it would die, nothing else would get hit, and you had to wait too long. A huge improvement to that skill.
Another thing that I kind of like, it's not specifically related to bullet shot, but if you have bullet shot and another attack skill, if you can do the bullet shot first, and then while you're spamming the other attack skill, it will go off for kind of some burst attack damage for monsters who may be a little bit more elusive. And they're like, oh, we took damage, let's run away, But yeah, you're running away, but you're taking arrow fire, and you're about to have an explosion go off, so it's harder for them to get away. And I mean, I know we don't have a lot of coward monsters in the beta, but I imagine that'll be more and more useful as the game goes on and we see more AIs.
Yeah, it'd be fun to hit Fallen and stuff with it and watch them scatter while they carry a bomb with
Yeah.
them. My first Demon Hunter playthrough, I was doing a full clear, and I got to level 8 just when I was into the crypts off of the cemetery. And I literally got Bolo Shot Runestone like 10 feet from the Jar of Souls quest when I first got it. And I was like, sweet. And it made that whole challenge just awesomely fun. I just sat in the middle and just constantly spammed bullet shots in all directions. And there's dozens of skeletons coming in carrying explosives around their heads, and it was fantastically fun. I don't think I even took a single hit in the whole area.
Yeah.
The other new skill, Strafe. I guess not the only new skill, but very different. What do you guys think of Strafe?
I love it. I can't stop using it.
I have never gotten so many high chains of destroying objects as I had before I got Strafe.
Yeah, it is the ultimate destructible test.
Yeah.
I was
there were objects I didn't know that you could actually destroy with weapon skills.
I just kind of tap it every now and then, like some banister falls apart. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know I could break that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or some urn falls off a pot. Like, oh, cool. Who knew that was there?
I also really like it for obstacles that you can't shoot direct arrows over, but Strafe somehow finds a way, and the arrow goes over like some banisters. It's really hard to shoot arrows over the banisters onto the monsters below, but Strafe has no problem, and it's really terrific for hitting monsters who have no chance at hitting you back.
Strafe is not. I don't think it's not horribly overpowered though, because it's a pretty heavy hatred drain, and it doesn't do that much damage to single targets. So I mean, it's really good against huge mobs all over the screen, but like it sucks for the Skeleton King kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty weak in terms of how much damage it does. If it weren't for so many weak monsters being around, like I don't think I would use it quite as much, except for what you all said about it being the obstacle breaker test or the environment breaking test.
I'm kind of I think it's a 9, right? The skill of it was, and so that would be like you would barely even have that for the Skeleton King in the normal game, assuming the normal game is the same sequence of events as the beta, which I don't think it is, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be more interesting at 20 or 30 or something, where it's going to be much more situational. It's not just going to be like, okay, I'll kill every single fallen on the screen in 1 second with this.
Yeah.
You'll have to actually pick your spots and use it intelligently. So I don't think it's horribly overpowered, unlike say every wizard skill. I think it should use discipline as well as hatred. I mean, it is a movement skill. Doesn't it seem like it should be both, like a evasive shot?
No, it slows you down.
But there's a runestone later that makes it stay at 100% movement speed.
That's true. I mean, you can move while firing. I don't know.
Thanks for the feedback.
Okay, so discipline, right, is generally for more utility, and I mean, I guess it's utility.
All the other movement skills are discipline. Vault and evasive shot use discipline.
Yeah.
And strafe is a movement skill as well as an attack skill.
Oh, did you see the change to the rapid, or what's the thing that gives you purple wings?
Shadow power?
Yeah, shadow power got changed to life leech from attack speed.
It's level 30 now too, so it's
Yeah, right. I wasn't even thinking about it until I was playing around with the calculator, and I don't know, I'm a little disappointed with that change because having gotten a chance to test it with attack speed, it was a pretty awesome steroid to make your character super strong for like 8 seconds. But I mean, super high lifesteal is pretty cool too. So be interesting to see.
So does it even need lifesteal?
I don't know.
What's interesting with that is that used to be one of the rune effects for the shadow power beforehand. When it increased your attack speed, you had the one where it would give you I think it was only 5% life leech.
And now it's 20% base, 30% with that rune.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So it's level 30, costs 20 discipline, 20% of all damage done as life for 3 seconds. That's a very short burst at base.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed that they didn't change was the whole what was it? The combination of multi-shot and preparation, with multi-shot giving you discipline and preparation giving you hatred. They didn't break that, because they broke a lot. Like, I was testing out, or not test. I was rebuilding some of the character builds I had made in the old version, and a lot of them are beyond broken. Like, may have worked in the past, definitely won't work now. Has to be rethought. But the multi-shot and preparation combo is still strong, which makes me happy. I hope that stays in the game, because it seems neat to have an opportunity to not need a hatred generator.
Did you guys try out Chakram much in the new version or compare it to previous?
I have not gotten that high yet, and that makes me very sad. That was my favorite ability previously in the beta for the Demon Hunter.
You know what? I have not tried that one yet.
I have tried Chakram, and my observation was that it's less effective than it used to be. But it's hard for me to determine if that's because Chakram is weaker or if it's because all the other skills are so much better. I think it's probably the latter. Because usually, before Chakram was just so good at AoE or any kind of big, really crowded screen, it would just scythe through everything. And it didn't seem as impressive to me now, but maybe that's because things like Bolo Shot and Strafe or other things are much more effective than they used to be. Any other Demon Hunter thoughts, guys?
The hungering arrow, is that what it's called? The very first skill you start out with is you get 2 runestones for it. You get one that ups the chance to pierce from 35% to 55%, and the other one that adds a damage over time component to every enemy you hit with it. And I have to say, I am a big fan of the first one, the 55% chance to pierce. Like, it's only 20% difference, but it's such a wrecker now. Like, you can hit. And the crazy thing about that arrow, I didn't notice this before, because with a 35% chance to pierce, I wasn't seeing that many pierce procs. It just and I got rid of it almost immediately because of how ineffective it seemed to be to me. But now I'm seeing it pierce the same monster. Like, it reminds me of Guided Arrow, the Amazon skill, back when it could just pierce on one person and like stun lock them almost. Like, this has a very similar capability, and it's really cool. Like, when it pierces multiple times, it's just an extremely high damage potential. Of course, it's all based on the proc, but I don't know. I haven't taken it off my bar because it's too much fun to use, and I feel it's far stronger than the damage over time component. Maybe you would use that if you needed fire damage. I'm not sure why you would use that though.
Yeah, the Cinder Arrow is the skill rune that does fire, and that comes in at 13,
Yeah.
and it adds 35% additional weapon damage as fire for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And I tried using that a little bit, but of course at level 13 in the beta, everything's dead before 3 seconds of fire anyway. So
yeah, and I mean, I feel I was doing a little bit of math on this, and it seems like because they both scale with weapon damage, so I don't think that the fire one will ever be worth using over the piercing one. So I don't know. I think they're going to have to take a look at that. It's one of the few cases where a rune stone, you can actually, say, okay, we have a single target, we have our chance to crit, we have our pierce chance, let's calculate it out. And the thing that's crazy is every single arrow that pierces has another 55% chance to pierce. So it's not uncommon to see more than one pierce. And the crazy thing about the arrow too, if you haven't really seen it much in play, is that it will, if there's nothing on the screen for it to bounce off of, it will just like pick something or nothing. It'll just make a U-turn in midair and come back to kill the monster you're attacking, which is pretty hilarious actually.
yeah, it can actually be hard to shoot what you want to shoot. Target it right at like the Bone Mage, and they'll all break off before they get there and hit skeletons.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not what I want.
The AI and the pathy on that one could probably use another pass through, to where if you have an enemy highlighted and selected, that it should always hit that target.
But maybe this is just the drawback. I mean, it's a super effective skill.
That's
And,
true.
one of the trade-offs is that you can't always hit what you aim for, like the Rolling Stones said.
Yeah, especially with the damage buff. It is, I was using it a lot, prior to this patch, but with the damage buff, it's incredibly useful.
Okay, any last Demon Hunter thoughts, guys?
Impale. The
Still sucks. Next.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You can stun lock. You could stun lock him for the entire fight. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's awesome. I hope that act bosses can't be stun locked though, otherwise it won't be much of a challenge at all.
And it breaks their animation. So like if he's getting ready to do his teleporting thing or his summoning thing,
Yeah,
you snap him with one of those, and he goes, "Rah, rah, rah," and then nothing happens.
nothing happens. No. It's possible that it's actually very easy to do that fight and not have a single skeleton spawn.
What fun is that? Then?
I have a blast. I mean, in PvP too, I just feel like that's going to be very brutal. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that one I could definitely see being a very powerful PvP talent, but otherwise I haven't seen too much of a use besides what someone might actually go through, make like a melee build using grenades or such.
I also use it to keep monsters away from me, particularly ones that like the big uglies that want to explode their guts all over me. I stun them in their tracks, and also frozen enchanted monsters, because they can't get to me if they're constantly being knocked back and stunned. And the hatred cost isn't too bad. I think it's 25. So you can use it 4 or 5 times in a row, and it's a very high damage skill. So yeah, it's pretty solid.
Hi, welcome back to the Diablo podcast. We are picking up several hours later. Neinball went out for dinner, and he's back.
Hi.
And we've traded out our other lesser commentators for an upgrade to the Eliminator.
Greetings.
And he's been playing, furiously practicing and playing through and getting ready and watching hockey and having dinner.
That's right.
And I took a nap on the floor with a cat sitting on me, so we're all prepared.
Hairball!
And we are... I'm going to guess for the hairball. And we're going to pick up where we left off. We talked earlier about 3 of the other characters. I've now forgotten which ones. We've got the monk and the witch doctor left. Who's your favorite character, you said, Eliminator? Sorry, Neinball. Why don't you tell us why you like the monk the best?
Just there's always a lot to do. It has, it's for me, it's a lot of fun. You're watching the timer on your mantra and such, and is just very fast. You're always once you actually unlock it, which now is level 2, dashing strike is incredibly useful. You're always just zipping from one side of the screen to the other. Like mobility that you have in combat just makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, dashing strike is awesome for other things too, because you can go through gated doors without even having to open them.
But you can't go over pits anymore.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of line of sight.
Yeah, that's one bad thing about it.
I think he's got a boring, repetitious play style, and it needs to be spiced up and varied some. You get 2 decent combos right away, Fists of Thunder and Deadly Reach, but both of them are 3 hits, and the third hit does a kind of an AoE attack. It's very similar pace, and Fist of Thunder is a little faster, and once you get the Rune Stone in it, they both become a nice AoE thing in the rune. And then, of course, you've got Dashing Strike, which is awesome, but you just use it over and over again. And there are no other... Lashing Tail Kick is kind of fun, but it's just sort of a single target. It's like a half-assed cleave with a kick, basically.
I think it would have been a completely different story if they let us have the Vulture Kick attack, the first rune for it.
Yeah, other early skills include Blinding Flash, which blinds everything and you never need to use.
Yeah, that.
Breath of Heaven, which heals you and you never need to use.
Yeah.
Mantra of Evasion, which makes you dodge, which you never need to use. So for me, the monk, I actually enjoyed it a little more. After our earlier podcast, my monk was a level 11, and I noticed I'd never tried Tempest Rush, so I went and leveled up to 13. And it got a little more fun once I was 12, because then I put a couple of fast-hitting axes on me, dual wielding, and I had the faster run passive, and I was using I had a very fast-hitting attack now, and I was using Tempest Rush to charge through some mobs to get to bosses and such. And it was a little more fun then. I'm a little faster. I'm hitting really quick. I'm moving. But still, it seemed like, you're essentially teleporting between every group of monsters, hitting them really fast with an AoE combo, and then rinse and repeat. And you can kind of mix in a Lashing Tail Kick once in a while, but that's not really any better than your normal combos, except against Vimby bosses. And I'm looking at the later skills, and there's not a huge variety, but you get down further, and you get Seven-Sided Strike and Wave of Light, and Sweeping Wind, which is another combo, but it's got multiple hits. And of course, Way of 100 Fists has lots of hits. And Mystic Ally has a little variety. It just seems like the early monk, you're just sort of endlessly repeating the same 2 actions, and there's not a lot of variety in what you're doing, except the skills have different names.
Yeah, I do think that it did get, kind of hosed in its early skill selection more so than any of the other classes, just because you get so many defensive and buffing abilities, which are just useless given the difficulty level that you are in the game. That will become a little bit more necessary in later difficulties, or we hope that it will.
I kind of agree with you, Flux. In this patch, for me, the monks kind of lost a little bit of its luster with the skill selection that they have. I really liked Cyclone Attack. It was something that was interesting because it sucked in the enemies before it did the AoE, so it had like that little, at least a little, some different wrinkle to it.
Yeah, that's now level 25.
Yeah. We also had Sweeping Wind to play with, didn't we?
Crippling Wave. That was like, yeah, that was like the go-to skill that you didn't need anything else when you were playing in the beta before. It's a little sad to see that one go.
And that's at 14 now, so it's just out of reach.
But I do see what you're talking about. That a lot of the skills that he has seems to be kind of very similar, like some sort of AoE attack. Besides Lash Tail Kick, there's no real single big hit attack.
Yeah, I liked the idea of the combos. I generally found the Barbarian kind of boring in D2 because I don't like single target hitting. It just seemed really like a waste of time. And I preferred the Zealot going kind of style with the Paladin. And what was the Fury? Was that the Druid skill that was the exact same thing?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm. And there was a double. Of course, the Barbarian had a double strike, and then you could frenzy with that. It was pretty fun. And my impression of the combos going in was that they would be more varied in, like we saw the early wave of 100 Fists, and it was like, dashing punch and then multiple target punches and then a big kick. It seemed like it was more varied in how many things it hit and the angles and stuff. And at least the first three we have access to now, Exploding Palm kind of does the same thing, where you hit one thing, and then you hit a bunch of things. We're only at the lower levels, and we'll get more variety in the combos as we get higher level runestones and the other combos come in.
So you don't like melee classes very much, do you?
I like them when they're powerful. I mean, I played a lot of Barbarian in D2. Barbarian was very effective magic, but I enjoyed high level magic find Barbarian with item find and other such things. The early up to like level 30, I was bored off my ass. So
yeah, so the reason why I ask is because it's essentially like your problem with a monk is like the same exact thing that you do on a wizard, because all it is just like running through and hitting arcane orb, but it's just a lot more flashy, even though it's the same thing.
Yeah, but I don't use arcane orb that much though. Wizard just seems like there's so many different varieties. And if there was a monk skill that did, like one really big hit to one thing, and then this one hits 10 things at once, it just seems like all the AoE attacks, and then we don't even have the crippling wave, which is more of the same thing. You use it and it hits everything in front of you quite effectively. I mean, I used that in previous patches.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to finally getting Wave of Light, the bell that everybody hates. But that one looks like a lot of fun to actually get in and start using.
Yeah, that, and then you get Seven-Sided Strike, right, almost at the same level. So it just seems like there's going to be more variety later, but I feel like I was doing the same thing with different graphics a lot with him currently. Although I did like Tempest Rush a lot. That's where you run forward. It's the new skill in the beta this time, and it's level 12. And he spins a staff. Of course, not his own staff. You can do it. I was using the staff when I got it, and his staff's in his invisible backpack.
Yeah.
Or if you have axes or whatever else weapons, he just spins an invisible staff, and it enables you, for people who haven't played it, enables you to run through any amount of monsters while doing kind of minor damage and pushing them back a little bit. And it's really good to rush through a big mob. I find it really awesome against, like the skeletal summoners. You just charge through all the baby skeletons, and then you start pounding on the big guy in the middle, and you get your big AoE going with your combos, and everything dies.
It's really fun to use it too, just the way it looks, the visuals aspect of it.
I was enjoying breaking barrels with it.
That is I did that too. A lot of destructible enjoyment with that skill, because you could just basically, with a room like last level before you fight the Lich King, all those
with all the urns.
Yeah, all the urns. You could
the Lich King.
The Lich. Sorry.
Yeah,
wow.
Sorry.
Really heavy mono spirit use though.
Yeah, that one sucks you dry pretty quickly. You should try that one in like the Jar of Souls. Just you'll wait till it's like halfway done. You have just a ton of monsters and just hit it, and then start playing like the Benny Hill theme as you just you just run through everything, and they all just cool fall over.
If they would have had a rune that reflected ranged attacks when you were running, I know. what is it, Serenity, or I think it's Serenity has that rune effect where it gives you a chance to here it is, instant karma. While Serenity is active, 50% of all projectiles and melee attacks are reflected back to the attacker.
Yeah, what level does that come in at?
Oh,
57.
57.
Yeah.
Be a little wait for your instant. That's delayed karma, I think. It's not instant karma.
I just thought it would be a pretty cool power to have for the Tempest Rush. Rush.
That's also, would bring it back to like one of the very first monk skills that they showed off when they were debuted was I can't remember the name of the skill, but you just sat there and you twirled your staff around. And it made a little bubble and it reflected all attacks that came in at you.
The one skill that I thought was a little more interesting was Exploding Palm in terms of how the damage is dealt. But the interesting thing about the damage of it is that it's 30% of the monster's hit points. Everything else is based on your weapon damage, it seems like. At least everything else in the early game. And if you use Exploding Palm on, say, a minion, it's got 80, 50, 60 hit points, and then a third of that is not much, it's 20. But if you get it on the boss, you can kill off all the minions, basically, in 2 seconds of hitting the boss.
Yeah, like if you're
really
fighting
useful.
some unburieds or something like that.
I actually got that today. I was the ghostly dude who protects Leoric's crown.
The Chancellor?
You will not bring this beast back to life, bro. Whatever his name is.
Chancellor, I think it is, or the...
Yeah. Anyway, I was all these skeletons spawn with him, and I just started pounding on him with Exploding Palm, and like 3 hits into it, it clicked on him, and it banged every skeleton for 55 damage, which was pretty much instant death for every skeleton. They've got 25 hit points at that point or something. So it was really useful. I could see that one being a really good skill for a boss. Not so much that it kills the boss, but that you can just polish off all his minions just immediately.
Yeah, or
imagine that with 10,000 hit point monsters. You're like, hey, that's pretty nice. 30% of that.
Yeah, or once you start getting into the higher difficulties, when things aren't dying in just 2 hits, look at how useful Death Sentry and Corpse Explosion were, just because of the fact that it scaled off of their hit points. It would do more damage than anything else that you could possibly hope for, even with like plus 30 or 40 to skills. Corpse Explosion would still do more, and you could clear an entire screen with just 2 bodies.
So it seems like maybe the monk is... A lot of characters kind of have this, where many of their skills seem pointless at this point because you don't need buffs or debuffs or defenses or whatever. And the monk just has the most of those skills of anybody at this level.
Yeah.
So you wonder, maybe like the wizard has like 1 skill in the whole beta that you don't really need to use, which is Diamond Skin.
Yeah.
Everything else you can use to kill stuff. Whereas the monk has several defensive, healing, etc. you never need, but maybe he will come more into his own once you get up into level 20s and 30s and beyond.
Yeah, I haven't tried a naked run yet with the monk. I've just kind of started with a demon hunter. That was the first naked run I've tried, and I did die once so far, so it's not all that easy.
Congratulations. I found the monk to be really durable as well. I don't think I ever even thought about using a health potion playing him thus far, without not even twinked or anything.
Yeah.
Which is ironic that he's got a healing skill early on. My take on that is that the monk needs a healing skill early on, like the female barbarian needs a skill to thicken her thighs. They've got certain things covered. They don't need help. But any other monk thoughts, guys? Before we close up with the witch doctor here.
Even with a lot of the changes in this patch, it might just be the itemization, but 2-handed weapons are still next to useless. Compared to just dual wielding, you just do so much less damage, and even with the passive skill that increases your spirit generation while using one of the Diabos, you just don't generate spirit anywhere near as fast as you would dual wielding. So at this point, it's like I really would love to play a monk that focuses on the staves, but just it's not there at these early levels. The dual wielding is incredibly more powerful, both in the amount of damage that you deal and being able to, get your spirit spenders off.
Just the one-handed weapons by themselves do more damage than the two-handed weapons. It's not even that you need a dual wield.
Yeah.
You can use a one-handed, like the highest damage weapon you can make in the beta is that one-handed axe.
Yeah, level 12.
And that's better. That's bigger than like the two-handed swords you can make. It's like, okay, this doesn't seem right.
That's only like maybe 2 levels lower than it.
Yeah, because spirit comes based on how many hits you do. If people are thinking it's not leech or anything like that, it's you do this, you get 6 spirit or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the faster you do it, the more spirit you get.
Yeah, if they maybe they had to buff the one passive from the 20% increased spirit generation to 25. Although that didn't really make too much of a difference, maybe they should bake something directly into those skills that increases how much spirit your attack generates based on whether you're dual wielding or using a two-hander, just to try and emphasize that a little bit more.
Or all the two-handers could have, +2 to spirit generation every time you use it, that kind of
Those
thing.
Diablo ones, Diablos.
Diablo, yeah. Couldn't we call them staves?
Yeah, I know. Every time when I first saw it, I was like, huh? Diablo staff? What is it?
Yeah, I don't want to play with Diablo's staff. Save that for Andariel. Okay, Witch Doctor. One of the main things I noticed with the Witch Doctor is the mana has been changed a lot. It seems like it's much more like you get a lower total and it's a much faster regen now. It feels a lot more like the arcane power for the wizard.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I also have to say that the Witch Doctor for me seemed like the best class in the beta now with the runes that they gave him.
So going through some of those runes, Poison Dart is the first skill, and the first rune you get gives it 3 shots, and that gets into this whole issue we have with Magic Missile. Is this skill formerly could get up to 8 or 10 darts. I used it at the BlizzCon in 2009, I believe, when they had runestones, and just the level 2 Indigo gave you 4 shots with Poison Dart, and now you're getting 3 as your maximum ever, which seems like a downgrade. Although obviously they could do more damage and make up for it, but
the BlizzCon that we went to, it was pretty much you're gonna die once you got hit with a few of those repeated blowgun shots, poison darts.
Yeah, that was in the arena demo you played.
Yeah,
that was his best killing skill, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you could hit guys like 2 times with it with full 5 each time, and they'd be dead just about.
Do you think that Grasp of the Dead is the best Witch Doctor skill in the game, or the best skill in the entire Diablo 3 demo?
I think the best skill in Diablo 3 demo, easily.
It is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Didn't you expect it to be just like a crappy little Necromancer curse, like a debuff kind of thing, before you ever started using it?
Yeah. You just throw it on somebody with the groping eels, and a whole group of them die. I had so much fun in the Jar of Souls events with groping eel. Just let them get all bunched up, and then pop the groping eels, and they all die in like a second.
Or I love using it, in places that I know enemies are going to spawn. Like since you get it it's level 2, you get it incredibly early, and as you're making your way into Old Tristram, when you have the scarecrow spawn, you just drop it, then click on the scarecrow, and it kills them all as they come up out of the ground.
Yeah, anytime, or you can do it before those paintings when the purple paintings where the skeletal summoners come out of. Or
yep.
You can almost keep it in use at all times. I mean, it's got an 8-second cooldown. It lasts like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So
I think it actually lasts for the full 8 seconds, so you can just spam it constantly.
And I also noticed you can cast it to basically any spot you can see, even if it's well out of your range, especially with the Witch Doctor, because really Poison Darts is the only skill he has that goes a long distance. Everything else is like, Firebomb or Fire Bats or Haunt or something. Has a much more limited reach than a lot of the wizard skills. Not Grasp of the Dead. You can cast that any damn place you want.
Yeah.
So you could be running up and you'll see skeletons that are, edge, the corner of your screen. They're maybe 100 yards away or something in game terms, and you can cast it on them, and they'll all die while you're still running. And before you're even in range, it's like, hey, they're all dead, and here I am.
I really found myself when I was playing the Witch Doctor. I never even really used the zombie dogs, or mongrels as we like to call them, at all, because they just
you don't need them.
You don't need them, yeah, because the Grasp of the Dead it either kills them or slows them down enough that they don't even get close to you.
Do you guys like the graphic of the first runestone, the whole boiling pot of eels thing?
I think it's fine. I mean, it could be a little more interesting, but
I kind of like the hands coming out of the ground a little bit better. Not really sure where they got the how eels play into that, or especially I've always questioned with just the grotesques themselves where eels make their way into roaming around in the corpse of undead creatures.
I didn't like that they just reused the same graphic from the Exploding Grotesques for it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, just pile of little lamprey things squirming around. Have you guys tried out corpse spiders?
I did. I like corpse spiders.
The leaping spider rune?
Yes.
Before, when they were just the normal corpse spiders, they didn't really invoke any sort of spider feelings inside me. Once you put the leaping spiders in, and they were all kind of black and red, fast and leaping. You kind of get that, oh, spiders.
And they're much more effective.
Oh, yeah.
I think that actually might be the most damaging single target spell the Witch Doctor has in the beta. Fire Bats might be more, but it's got a much higher mana drain per second.
Yeah.
You can get 3 jars of corpse spiders out, each of which has 4 spiders, for a total of 17 spiders. And they hit at least once a second per spider. And I was using Ellie's level 13 Witch Doctor earlier, and they were doing about 11 or 12 damage per hit. Whereas my Firebomb would do, 36 or something like that on average.
Well, they just actually...
But that's like 1 per second. That's 12 spiders per second.
Yeah.
It was crazy how fast it was killing individual targets.
Yeah. They actually lowered the damage on Firebomb in this patch.
Yeah.
It was 150 and now it's 100.
Like we were saying with the Grasp of the Dead, if you haven't played it much, you probably think of it as kind of a support skill and a debuff.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really powerful killing tool, and corpse spiders as well.
Yeah.
I found that it wasn't that good against big packs because everything gets hit a little bit at the same time, and you don't get that isolated killing speed.
Really, the only kind of weak part for the Witch Doctor is he didn't have, outside of Grasp of the Dead, he doesn't have any distance good AoE.
It was one of the things that actually saddened me with this patch, and the reason why I haven't played the Witch Doctor as much is because they've now made it to where Zombie Charger, I believe, is level 14. So you don't get that. That was my favorite skill, especially for clearing out AoE packs in the beta previously.
I don't like Plague of Toads because it's just too random. It's more random than Shock Pulse or Pulse, whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
Disappointing that the level 14 is the first runestone for Plague of Toads, and they become exploding fire toads.
Yeah.
That
I was
looks
hoping
like it's gonna
that'd be fun to try.
Because just like Shock Pulse.
Yeah, the first rune of that is exploding lightning things, which made it much more fun. Much more effective.
Oh yeah.
I tried Haunt a little. It seems like it's been nerfed, or maybe it's just weaker because he has other skills that are now better, and they jumping spiders and stuff improved. It seemed like Haunt was really effective to attack. You just toss into a mob earlier, and half the stuff would die 5 seconds later.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to jump over to other things as good as it used to.
It's 350% weapon damage over 15 seconds. I don't think it was 15 seconds before. Maybe I'm just misremembering it, but
I think it was only 6 seconds beforehand.
And then, as Eliminator said, I think Firebomb. It was you that said that, right? Firebomb got nerfed a little.
Yeah, Firebomb got nerfed 50%.
And Fire Bats is still really good, but they raised the level of it a little bit, or I think it's 13 now. 12 with Fire Bats.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you don't. There's lots of cool rune stones. They don't come in until 19 and above, so can't try that. And Spirit Walk has been moved higher, and Zombie Charger has been moved higher.
Spirit Walk I don't really mind too much because it's one of those defensive skills that you weren't really going to use.
My main complaint about the Witch Doctor now is that the way the controls are set up now. I mean, I generally don't like to have targeting attack spells on my left click.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave regular attack on there previously, and I would put all the other stuff on right mouse or on 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons. And now you have to have something. You generally poison darts or whatever, Plague of Toads or something on your left click. And the problem with that is if almost every Witch Doctor spell except for poison darts has a very limited range. So you can have your left click with whatever it is, Firebomb, Fire Bats, Plague of Toads, Haunt, etc. And if you're trying to click on a barrel that's 50 yards away, you'll just stand where you are and throw rocks at it and never actually reach it. So I found myself constantly, unless I was using poison darts, having to click beside things and next to things. And of course, you're doing that in a battle. You don't want to walk towards it.
Yeah.
And if you right-click and miss something, you're fine, especially because most of his spells are AoE targeting. You don't need to click on something to use Firebomb or Fire Bats or Corpse Spiders or whatever.
Yeah.
But you do.
They're all fire and
it's the
forget.
left click, and then you're not moving anywhere.
Yeah.
I really don't like his controls. I really want another hotkey with him. Just have left click be attack.
I kind of use Grasp of the Dead as my left click.
But don't you just cast it every time you click anything?
You're in the game, Neinball. You try it out.
All right, just hold on, give me 3 minutes while I attempt to swap out skills because it's on a different key.
Yeah, every skill you're shuffling.
All right, there's the first one changed, and now let me go back and change to this one. And yep, it's you can do it on left click.
Grasp of the Dead's a secondary skill. Yeah, you can put other secondary skills on there.
Yeah, it's mainly
you can't put like defensive on left click.
Yeah, they won't let you put defensive or passive skills on left click. Although apparently I can put zombie dogs on there.
A friend of mine who's been a longtime WoW player, tragically enough, was mentioning that he really hates the way the left click works in Diablo 3 now with the new controls and the beta patch. He's never put anything on his left click except for melee skills, and he doesn't like to use right click much. He said that was only the paladin that he used the right click on. He would put everything else on, the hotkeys and cycle through them. No, sorry, I mangled that description. He didn't like the paladin in D2 because he had to put attack skills in the left click because you had to have your auras on the right click. It was how the game worked.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he hates having to put attack spells on his left click, and only ever did that with the paladin because the controls required you to. And now, of course, Diablo 3 you have to do that with every single character because you only have 6 hotkeys and only have 6 keys to put them on. And I said, yeah, I'll get Jay Wilson to change that, no worries.
How's that going for you?
So, any other Witch Doctor thoughts, guys?
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some of the higher level abilities. Just I didn't actually play him in the PvP demo at last year's BlizzCon, but I had him used against me many times, and just the amount of control that he has in PvP is insane. And that was with the predetermined.
Too.
Yeah, just that was with their predetermined skills. Just being able to see what someone could do when they can pick their own things is going to be pretty interesting.
Any bold release date predictions to close up on?
I'll say May 15th.
Well, you're going right in the middle of that Q2, huh?
Yep.
I would be surprised if it's any earlier than like the last week in May.
Okay, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. Okay, you've been listening to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Moo.
See you later. Moo.
Moo. Moo.